I was gonna start off with like, oops, I did it again. I bought some more books. They're now in my house. But like, there's no oops about it. I did this entirely on purpose. And just for once, I have no regrets. And welcome back to another video. And today it's one of our favourites. It's haul time! Now if you have had a look at my last bingo board update video, then you will know that for last quarter, between April and the end of July, I only hauled 15 books. I know, gasp! Who are they? Who is this person who emerges on the horizon, who is fiscally responsible and acknowledges that they have almost run out of space on their shelves? Could it be a Winnie? In all seriousness, 15 books compared to quarter two of the last 2 years is less than a quarter of what I have normally been hauling. And I would honestly like to say that the reason why I have hauled less is because I am genuinely being more responsible and thinking more about my purchases, and that's definitely a part of it. That's a little seed that's like growing. We're tending to that nice new habit. However, the reality of the situation is that in the last quarter there just haven't really been that many books that I was excited about, which does somewhat curtail one's buying. And that trend do seem to be carrying on into quarter three of the year, because what I have for you here is a modest haul. A small combination of most anticipated books, some lovely things sent from friends and publishers, and one thing that I have already read but desperately needed a copy of. And it's not the one that you're thinking, so haha. Also, I really hope that you can't see the puncture marks on my arm when I'm gesticulating. I was playing with McNab before I started this video and we got a little bit rough. He did in fact mistake me for Commander Banana. That mean that I deserve these books to feel better? Maybe. Alright, where to begin? Let's start with a book that I am actually currently reading. Hello? Can I help you? We can't play right now. I'm doing a thing. And I am actually very glad that I am currently reading this one, because the synopsis of it is just a scotch misleading. Just a tiny bit. And that book is A Sharp Scratch by Heather Darwin. I'm so sorry that this is so aggressively shiny. I will try and keep it at an angle that doesn't do that. The reason that it's all shiny is because I bought this one from Toppings in Edinburgh. If you are not in the UK, then you might not know Toppings is a independent chain of luxury bookshops. They generally lease beautiful old buildings and put in rolling ladders and lots of wood. You can sit down and have a cup of tea while you're browsing books there. It's a nice vibe. But one of the things that they do with all of their hardbacks is they put on this like almost library-ish contact film over the tops of their dust jackets so that they don't get wrecked. And I both love and absolutely hate it. I hate it because of course it's not necessarily, and it's massively wasteful plastic-wise, but I also love it because I am really, really tough on my books when I'm taking them out and about places, even in book sleeves. So you know, I would prefer that it isn't there, but when it is there I might as well just leave it on and not scuff up the corners of my dust jacket. Now you might recognise the name Heather Darwin because she also wrote The Things We Do. I heard the unsubtle tippy tapping. Why have you appeared? Their dad is not in the house and thus they are bereft. Let's try that for the third time. You might recognise the name Heather Darwin because she also wrote The Things That We Do to Our Friends, which I absolutely adored. It's, I want to say, dark academia adjacent, because the academia part is incredibly light. The characters do meet while they are at Edinburgh University, but they in no way spend any time really doing anything to do with their studies. In fact, they vastly abandon that life. But I absolutely adored it. It is 100% one of those books about terrible people doing terrible, unconscionable things to each other, and I blasted through it. And although I'm pretty good at knowing when authors that I have loved books from previously are bringing out new things, this one came as a complete surprise to me. I literally walked in the door of Toppings and was like, now when I said that this one has a bit of a misleading premise, that is because the blurb very much kind of totes this as a woman who has been struggling her entire life to feel like a normal person. She struggles to fit in with her friends, she struggles to do well at work, she just feels like there's no place for her, and she independently researches to try and find ways to make herself better, and she finds Cairn. Cairn is a wellness institute which purports to fix people, completely repair them and make them ready to join the rest of society, and she jumps at the chance. And while that synopsis is mostly true, like the substance of it is accurate, the details of it are wildly not. Because this book begins on Betsy's wedding day. She is getting married. Her maid of honour is her best friend and also her work colleague. At the beginning of this, her life doesn't actually seem that bad. There doesn't seem to be anything that necessarily needs fixed. But then as the first couple of chapters go on, we start to see all of the cracks form. Betsy does believe by the point that Cairn comes into her life that she is broken, but she is in hospital and she is kind of completely alone, and when the person from Cairn turns up in her room and offers her this solution, she doesn't exactly jump at the chance, but the people who tell her that Cairn exists slowly make her believe that it really is this best, perfect, magical option. The premise of this is so much more twisty, the setup of this is so much more insidious and icky feeling than the synopsis actually gives it credit for, which is very in keeping with what I expect from Heather Darwin. Next book that I have is one that I didn't know anything about before it popped through my door, and it was not sent by a publisher or a friend. Allow me to explain. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, then you already know that I collect special editions of Robin Hobb. These books up here are the 20th anniversary edition of the Farseer Trilogy. The illustrated versions are out in the hall. I have various other special editions that were released over time. Not that long ago, Illumicrate announced that they were doing this set, and as soon as I saw it I was like, I need it right now. However, in order to get your hands on this set, one had to be a subscriber to one of Illumicrate's various book boxes, and as you guys also know, I very much am over the subscription book model at this point. Overnight, which was Illumicrate's quarterly horror subscription, was going to be my very last thing that I was going to cancel, and I wasn't going to be signing up to anything else. This set got announced literally the week after I cancelled it, and I was like, Now I should point out here before anybody yells at me that you absolutely do not have to be a subscriber to any of Illumicrate's boxes in order to get your hands on their special edition sets, because they do eventually go on release for general sale. However, this was an extremely popular launch and there was a good chance that I wasn't going to be quick enough to get in on the general sale, and so I decided that I was just going to hedge my bets. So I had a look at all of Illumicrate's services that they currently offer, and I decided to sign up for the first Starbright book, which is the first in their science fiction subset of quarterly boxes. In doing so, I had absolutely no idea what was going to pop through my door, and so I was actually very pleasantly surprised when I discovered that it was this one. This is Overgrowth by Mira Grant, obviously also known as Shauna Maguire, who writes a lot of urban fantasy things under the name Mira Grant, and now also some sci-fi. And when I say I'm pleasantly surprised, I don't just mean by the actual product itself, because it is of course very beautiful, but I am also pleasantly surprised because I think if I had read the premise for this one on my own, I might not have picked it up, and yet I have read the first couple of chapters of this one and I really like it so far. So maybe, haha, joke's on win. So simply put, this book is about Anastasia Miller. Since she was a very, very little toddler, she has been telling people that she is an alien, that she was left here by her family, and that one day they are going to come and pick her back up. And of course, everybody in her life is like, oh, this is her little thing. She believes in aliens, she thinks she's an alien, it's cute. Although it does get more problematic as she gets older. And then one day, the inevitable happens. There are signals sent from space, and an armada does indeed turn up to take Anastasia Miller home. But why would an entire alien armada cross a galaxy just for one child? I guess Mira Grant's gonna tell us. Next up, coming directly from my most anticipated books of the year list, we have The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. I am delighted to have this in my hand. So much so that apparently I don't want to show you the cover because it's just for me. Even goes with my hair. This is Maggie Stiefvater's adult debut. I have been obsessed with Maggie Stiefvater since way back in the day. Like too far back that I don't really want to talk about it now. And I knew as soon as I heard the words adult debut that I was getting it no matter what the premise was. But it turns out that the premise is really freaking intriguing and absolutely not something that I expected Maggie Stiefvater to write. So this beautiful hotel that is so carefully depicted on the end papers is the Avalon Hotel. It is sequestered deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and it is kind of also a spa. There's definitely a theme going on in this hall so far. It exists to make the people who come to visit it feel better, feel cleansed. And June, the general manager, has known the power of it since she was a very young girl. She has done everything that she can to keep the Avalon safe and to offer its services to people who really, really need it. And the worst thing for the Avalon and its, how shall we put it, immaculate vibes that June can possibly think is to have people with evil intentions in its walls. But unfortunately in 1942 that is exactly what happens. The State Department tells the owners of the Avalon that they are going to be using the hotel for a meeting to try and mediate between the State Department and Nazi sympathisers. And so there June finds herself trying not to let the poisonous people literally poison the Avalon itself, but also somehow in the middle of a mystery. The very last line of the blurb says, "And more troubling is the secret she has guarded for years, that the mountain waters can harm as much as heal." I am so excited for this one. Next up, I have a package from the wonderful people over at Vintage. They have just released a new series of vintage classics which speak to my little literary soul. This is the Weird Girls series, dedicated to uplifting feminist masterpieces from throughout the vintage canon. So some of the titles here that they are going to be bringing out is one of my absolute favourite short stories in the world. This is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and honestly, if I was ever to kind of release a wins reading list for life, this one would be on it. Then we have Death in Her Hands by Otesha Mosfeg and The Diving Pool by Yoko Ogawa. And then we have this package that says Dare to Defy the Norm. So let's crack into it together and see which classic they have sent me through. I left it in this really cute packaging because I thought you guys would like to see it. Oh, it's pretty. Oh, okay. So this is Black Magic by Marjorie Bowen. There's a little brief in here that they've given me and it says, "We're especially excited to be introducing Black Magic by Marjorie Bowen. First published in 1909, it is the remarkable rediscovered tale of a gender non-conforming rebel." It's got some info in the back of the book and it says, "A rediscovered gothic classic with a groundbreaking gender non-conforming protagonist at its heart. 20 years before Virginia Woolf's Orlando, there was Marjorie Bowen's Dirk Renswood." Ew, sounds right up my alley. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of really struggling to not just want to pick up the whole set. Alright, next up I have got a couple of gifts that were sent to me from some really lovely friends. It's been tough health times around here recently, guys, and I have been sort of limping through it as best I can, and as always lovely friends have been doing lovely friends things in the background to just make it a little bit easier, and these two lovely but very different little gifties popped their way through my door this last little while. The first one that I have is a horror. This is Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This was sent to me from my lovely bestie Sarah. Sarah and I currently have an ongoing list of all the books that we share in common in our libraries that we aspire to buddy read. So as Sarah's note says, this has made its way onto our list, and when we get to it, who knows. And this one is one of those very sort of like creepy, fever dreamy horrors from what I can tell from the synopsis of it. I've had my eye on this for ages and just keep not picking it up. So this one is about Abby Lamb, and as the back says, she feels like she has found her final great good in her husband. She feels like her purpose has been fulfilled, they have got married, they are starting a family, and everything is going to be alright now, when it really very much wasn't. However, through a lot of set of circumstances, the Lambs have to move in with Abby's mother-in-law, Laura. And Abby swiftly discovers that all of the great good that she has found is slowly being chipped and eroded away by Laura's complete venom. But then one day Laura dies, and it was so sudden that nobody could have done anything to prevent it, and Abby quietly hopes, although this horrible thing has happened, that they will work through it as a family and that everybody will be fine. Until Laura's ghost returns to start to terrorize the household in some horrible, horrible ways. This looks like it might be one of those like southern jello salads. It's looking very terrinish and it's not giving me good vibes. Next up, from my lovely friend Victoria from What Victoria Read here on BookTube, we have got the Firelight Apprentice by Bree Paulson. I had a little cry when this came through, I'm not gonna lie. You guys know that I don't treat myself to very many graphic novels these days because I read them so quickly and they're just so spenny. But Bree Paulson is the author of the Garlic and the Vampire and Garlic and the Witch duology, both of which are two of my favourite graphic novels in the world, actually two of my favourite stories ever. It feels like capturing the spirit of like Animal Crossing, that kind of little bubble that we were all in together when it came out, whilst also giving you some like hard-hitting life advice hand in hand. It's pretty perfect. And so this one had been on my wish list from the second that I saw that it was announced. So from what I can see, the Firelight Apprentice is set in a completely different world from Garlic and the Witch. However, art style is very much the same, so there is definitely the potential with the magic in here and the magic in Garlic for there to be a crossover at some point in the future. So this one is about Ada. She is looking after her younger sister Safi. They're completely alone in this world, which is post a huge magical war. And although the war is over, it is definitely not completely safe, especially not for people who develop any kind of magic going forward, which obviously Safi is starting to do. Ada has a couple of options for what she can do, one of them being releasing Safi completely into the like apprenticeship of the King's Magician, who are the only people who are allowed to have magic at this point. But then Safi would be completely gone from her control, she wouldn't be able to keep her safe. And so when a travelling group of performers comes to town, they offer Safi somewhere safe to learn how to use her magic and also to come on the road with them, but it does mean that Ada has to give up every bit of safety that she knows. This looks a lot more ominous and doom filled than Garlic and the Witch, which like I said does give like Animal Crossing Stardew Valley cozy farming sim vibe. So I am excited to see where this one goes. Thank you so much to Victoria and also to Sarah for sending these through. It does mean the world to be thought of. And then of course the other one that I have mentioned a few times recently is We Are All Guilty Here by Karen Slaughter. This is the start of a new series, the title of which I have forgotten. North Falls. It's the start of the North Falls series. I have had a somewhat tumultuous relationship with Karen Slaughter previous to this. Two of her standalones, The Good Daughter and Pretty Girls, are two of my absolute favourite thrillers in the entire world. They are amazing. They are so tightly plotted, they are so horrific, but they have these like deeply complex relationships at the centre of them. The Good Daughter is honestly up there for my top 3 thrillers ever. I of course then picked up Karen Slaughter's most recent standalone releases. One of them was so boring, one of the most boring books that I've ever read in my life, and I think it is predominantly because she did so much research for it and she wanted it all to be in that freaking book, and it was just, honestly, I was mind numbed, and I was both mind numbed and kind of like put off by quite a lot of the content in there. While Karen Slaughter does sail very close to the sun when it comes to putting like themes in thrillers that are taboo, that are things that you would be like, oh wow, that's a huge line that was crossed there. Most of the time it is in the vein where you look at it like, well, these are the things that do go on, it's just that nobody's talking about them. Whereas in that particular book, the name of which I can't remember now, Pieces of Her maybe, I've blighted it from my memory, there were some genuinely problematic attitudes in there and I was like, don't like it. Then that got a follow-up for some reason, that got a sequel which and then there was this one, which was a standalone that she brought out during the pepperoni times, and it was due to be published and it had no mention of the pepperoni in it, and then she decided that that wasn't good enough and she rewrote it to include details of the pepperoni. So it is just So much detail about masks and hand sanitizer. It was really too much. I'm still not in the place where I really want to read anything that includes massive details about the pepperoni. Plot wasn't that great anyway, and then the pepperoni stuff on top of it, I was like, do you know what? Maybe Karen Slaughter's done for me. Maybe I just need to like let go and accept that these two books were perfect and nothing else is. But then this was on a table in a bookshop, and I actually didn't know that this was coming out because I wasn't following releases from Karen Slaughter anymore, and this promises to be everything that I love about her stuff. So if it's terrible, I've only got myself to blame because I did this to me. However, this is set in a little tiny community of North Falls, and it looks like the series is going to follow the police officer at the heart of this story through a couple of different cases, and it's going to really very much include her personal life and stuff. So I'm kind of looking forward for that, because you know that my favourite thrillers are small town, closed community, very everybody has a secret and we need to prize it out of you thrillers. The other good thing about this is that although it does have a police officer at its heart, which I don't love, like I don't love detective stories and stuff, this police officer is not really meant to be investigating this case. They're not a detective, they're just a beat cop from what I understand, and so that's interesting as well. And it is also about complicated female friendships, because the main character at the centre of this has her best friend's teenage daughter come to her and ask for help, and she blows her off. She's like, it's not that big a deal, you know, like I'm not dealing with this. And then that daughter goes missing and she's like, holy crap, this is my fault and I have to fix this. We are like unpicking the details of a teenage kid's life in the background, which is giving me very like Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but make it almost on the horror-y side of details because it's Karen Slaughter. So cross fingers, everybody send the good vibes. I really want this one to work for me. The lovely people at Canongate sent me the entirety of the Odd trilogy. That's AUD, not ODD. Gonna have to forgive the Scottish accent there. Odd is actually a Norwegian name. Our main character was born in Norway and now lives, as is described, in the sticky heat of Atlanta. She is a private security consultant who very much looks after the rich and famous as they go about their day. But then one night, on the night of a catastrophic thunderstorm that takes out a lot of Atlanta's power grid, Odd happens to bump into a running woman, and from there she gets pulled into an absolute web of forgeries and lies and murder in Atlanta's underbelly. And again, we've been doing really good with last lines of synopsis in this haul, but it says, she must risk losing herself to that cool blue place where violence is bliss. So this series is queer. It is a queer crime thriller series, and I had not heard of it before at all. So if you are interested in diving into it yourself, we've got The Blue Place, and then we've got Stay, and then we have got Always. And one of the things that was on the publisher's press release for this one was that if you are a fan of noir in any way, then this is a series that you would like. And then finally, we have a copy of a book that I read from my library and that I decided that I wanted to be part of my very own collection because I loved it so much, and that is Ask Not: The Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed by Maureen Callahan. This book is about 20 women who over the years came in contact with the Kennedy dynasty, some who married into it, some who were abused by it and then cast out. And it is a reconstructed telling of their stories, from talking to friends, families, from reading their diaries that had been left to friends and families, and from like digging into the recollections of people who were actually involved in the situations at the time. It kind of scrapes the lid off of all of the cover-ups, and it really takes apart the press at the time. Quite honestly, I had no idea before I picked this one up on a complete whim how many lives the Kennedys had systematically destroyed over the time that the Kennedy men had been kind of active as adults in their life. One of the reasons that I wanted a physical copy is because it has a lot of never seen before pictures of the women who are talked about in this book. This one is an incredibly heavy read, so if you're not in a place for it, then I would say maybe just skip it. But if this is the kind of history that you love, repositioning women in the places that they belong and putting them at the heart of their own story and kind of like giving them back their agency, then I think you will absolutely adore this. I will say it has had a lot of varied criticism since it released. Obviously there are a lot of people who don't believe that the Kennedys should be talked about this way, but there are also a lot of people who really dislike the way that this book is told, because it is told from anecdotes, recollections, private papers and things like that. A lot of people are put off by the idea that there is only one particular way to tell pieces from historical record, that there is only one set way to write a book like this, and that is the way that men have been writing history books for years. So I would say try this for yourself, and if there's any facts in it that you want to look up, use your own critical reasoning skills to research them. But I for one am very, very pleased to have this on my shelves, and I will continue to recommend it to people because I am still shook months and months after reading it about the things that happened in here. That is it, my guys. That is my little book haul. Let me count. I should have done this. I should always do this before and I never do. 11, 12, 13 books. That's not too bad. 13 books to start off this quarter. I do definitely know that there are more books to come for this quarter, however. There are quite a few pre-orders coming up in September that I'm very excited about, and at the start of October. If you would like to hear about any of the books that I'm super excited about, you can check out my last most anticipated books video. It takes you all the way through to January. So if you have got this far through the video, then please leave me the little garlic emoji down below for the fact that we have got a Brie Paulson book in this stack that I am so excited for. And then maybe more people will go, why is there garlic in the comments, and we'll discover garlic in the vampire and garlic in the witch and have a part of their soul also healed. Please tell me down in the comments what is the book that you bought most recently. I do love shopping your recommendations. If you are new to my channel and you are desperate to hear my reviews on some of these and my tops and bottoms, then hit that subscribe button down below. And if you are a returning subscriber who is now running off to pre-order literally all of these because you just trust me so much, then please hit that like button on the way out because it really does help my channel, and I will speak to you guys really soon. Bye! I should have done this exactly the way that I did my last haul, where I put all of these on the shelves at the same time as I told you about them, and quite honestly I'm kicking myself, so that's what we're going to do next time, okay? Hold me to it. Next time. Now I have to do it myself and I don't want to.